And I remember looking around and thinking, anybody that ever has built anything, all these buildings, all these stores, all these companies that I see, like had an idea at some point and they decided to take that idea and take a risk. And it was no less scarier for them than it feels for me. And if they can do it, I can do it.
Welcome back to the Fitt Insider podcast. I'm your host, Joe Veneri. Today I'm joined by Anne Mahlum. Anne is the founder of Back on My Feet, solidcore, and Ambition. In this episode, we talk about starting and scaling the Pilates-inspired studio solidcore. Anne shares her advice for fitness entrepreneurs and lessons learned navigating COVID. Plus, we discuss Ambition, Anne's latest fitness venture that combines 4 modalities under one roof. Let's get into it. Hi, Anne. Welcome to Fitt Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Joe. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to chatting today. We were kind of talking offline a little bit. You've kind of done so much across the fitness industry, a number of different ventures, and now starting a new one. So, for folks who aren't familiar, and I think a lot of listeners will be, but how do you describe yourself, kind of your role and in your background? Maybe just give us the kind of quick, kind of 60-second intro, and we'll get into it from there.
Yeah, thanks. I think the best way is I'm an entrepreneur who likes to create and build branded experiences that make people's lives better. At least I hope they do. So I really like community. It is very important to me in all areas of my life. And I feel like it's been my superpower as an entrepreneur is taking these concepts or things that I have found joy in and putting a really authentic brand and consistent quality experience around them and then scaling them. And yeah, it's all experiential. So it's been a ton of fun.
Yeah, and I think specific to kind of this audience, what folks would know you from is solidcore. So founding the Pilates inspired studio, scaling that up. I think 70 plus locations at this point and still involved there, but have since, left the kind of CEO role and maybe day-to-day operations. You can correct me on that front in terms of involvement now, but now also kind of looking ahead to new fitness and wellness ventures. Ambition was recently announced. But maybe before we get into what's next, just thinking about kind of starting solid core, what in the 2010s, so like 2010, 2013 range.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, 2013.
at the, yeah, 2013 at the kind of peak boutique fitness boom. You talked a lot about community, you talked about experiential, people making people's lives better. Maybe just for a second there, talk about getting started with solid core, how that came to be and how these different kind of avenues that you're so passionate about, from community to experiential, making people's lives better, converged with the trends at the time around doing that, creating a really compelling studio experience, the interest in, maybe that high touch or high end fitness studio, and where all that culminated.
Yeah, I think to get to there, I got to back up right before Back on My Feet and tell you about the end of that period of my life. So I was running a nonprofit that I had started and grew over 6.5 years, which uses running as a vehicle to help people who are experiencing homelessness change the way that they saw themselves so that they could actually make real change in their lives around self-sufficiency, which included employment and housing. And there's a lot more to that story, of course, because it's like, wait, how did that happen? But that was really my first big entrepreneurial effort. And it was so satisfying and so purposeful and really made a lot of trauma in my personal life make sense and come full circle. So 6 years in, when I started to feel like almost this knocking of like, it's time to do something new again. It's time to like go spread your wings. And I'm like, what is that? Like, I'm not doing this again. Like, one, what if I fail? Two, how do I top this? And three, just like, I don't even know what I would do. It didn't go away. And it was like almost this authentic version of myself being like, you're an entrepreneur, Anne. Like, you might have thought this was your one and only act, but this was act one. So I just sort of kept paying attention. And I'm like, I feel like the universe is trying to tell me something, and I'm going to keep my eyes and ears open. So I went to LA. I was there for work for Back on My Feet. And I walked by this Pilates studio that looked like very LA Joe. It was like these machines and just I'm like, "Oh, this is cute." And like I consider myself a pretty decent athlete. I had done 10 marathons or so at the time, boot camps, like you name it, and I was doing it. So I went to do this workout and it was so hard. So and I was like, I didn't know you could work out this way. I thought you had to jump, pound. It was almost a rite of passage to be injured every few months. And I was so incredibly sore the next day. And I found a Pilates studio in New York, which is where I was spending a lot of time at that time in my life. And my body just transformed. And along with that, my confidence transformed. And I remember taking, it was actually an SLT class. I know Amanda well. And Amanda Freeman's the founder of SLT. And I was like, where do these machines come from? And I just started to do the business math. And I was like, this is an incredible business opportunity. And like, this is my next thing. I'm going to open a Pilates esque inspired studio. I'm going to move back to DC and I'm going to do what I do best and build a really experiential, authentic brand around this way of working out. And everybody thought I was a little bit nuts. I've been told I've been nuts several times in my life, especially leaving back on my feet to go start solid core. It was like, oh my God, gyms have such a high failure rate. And I'm like, it's not a gym, it's a studio. But yeah, it was just it was a complete 180 for a lot of people of what I was doing and how I was dedicating my time. But I really, especially for women, I'm like, I want women to feel as good as I feel about my body because it was a very long road for me to get there and I felt so compelled to open the company. And November 2013, so about 9 years ago, is when we had studio number 1.
Yeah, it's and I didn't mean to gloss over back on my feet and kind of getting started there. And even to maybe take a step back, you said it's a long story. We don't have to get into all of it, but even from making that decision and having the realization that, like you said, I am an entrepreneur, like that first go around, what was that realization like? Because I'd imagine now you take a step back, we'll talk about this in detail now, but now you're making that kind of third act after you thought maybe the first time around was the only one, and then doing it again now a third time. I'd imagine it's a very different mindset getting started. Can I do this? How do I do it? And now kind of having the proved it, being able to do it again more confidently, or maybe having access to the people and the network and the money and so forth. But maybe that first time, what was that getting started like, and how were you able to kind of push through it?
What got me to do it the first time was naivete. And when you've never done it, you have no idea how hard it is. I was so driven by purpose and passion and wanting to help people. And it tied in my love of running. I mean, I ran all the time back then. The guys who I got connected to at this homeless shelter reminded me very much of my father, who is an addict. And I could never figure out how to help him when I was a teenager. And I felt like I got a second chance at somehow redeeming that opportunity and I could like vicariously heal my father and my relationship. So all that was just like, I have to do this. I will wonder the rest of my life. And I frankly just felt like I needed it for my healing. And I don't know. There was a part of me where I was searching really hard those 2 years of my life and I wanted purpose. I wanted to know what I was here for. I wanted to know I wanted impact. I wanted contribution. And for 2 years, and I think a lot of people feel this way, at least at one level in their life of like, what is this all for? Like, what is my true contribution going to be when I'm at the end of my rope or end of my life? And did I really accentuate my gifts or give my gifts? And I saw something that no one else saw when I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. And I couldn't find one person to be like, go for it, Anne. Everybody thought the idea of like, and it's great that you're helping people and you're running with these guys, and everybody kind of always disassociated them to me. But what do you mean you want to make this your job? Like, what do you mean this is going to be your career? And I'm like, I think I can turn this into a fully functioning, well developed program that starts with running. That if we can change the way that they see themselves and make them believe that they can have a different life than they currently have, that they will be successful in a job, in housing, in contribution, but they need an environment to do that. And Joe, I went as far as if we don't give them that, they're going to be homeless the rest of their life. There frankly is no other way to tackle this social issue. If you don't emotionally feel capable and mentally feel capable of change and progress and your abilities, nothing's ever going to be different than it is today. And I remember walking around Philadelphia because I had just gotten this very big job at Comcast, of like six-figure job as a 26-year-old now, 15 plus years ago. And I was like, I can't take it. I can't go. I got to try this. And I remember looking around and thinking, gosh, anybody that ever has built anything, all these buildings, all these stores, all these companies that I see, like, had an idea at some point, and they decided to take that idea and take a risk, and it was no less scarier for them than it feels for me, and if they can do it, I can do it. And it was just that notion of feeling like no one else had a blueprint. I convinced myself of that. No one else had, anything more than what I had, and I felt I was at least smart enough to surround myself with people who were smarter than me, and I had enough passion and gumption and just like desire and purpose that I was just not going to let this thing fail. And that was enough for me to figure it out.
Yeah, that's an incredible story on so many levels in terms of your personal journey and helping people, the impact, the particular, group that you were impacting, and really doing something that frankly is often overlooked for them. And now thinking about that, hearing you talk about it, it's very kind of obvious, maybe in hindsight, right? Is always 2020, but like you had that passion or at least the drive to take the risk where oftentimes most people that's what stops them. They think about everything that could go wrong. They think about all the reasons it's not going to work out. And then they have people in their head maybe that are telling them that it's not a good idea. They should pursue the safe, comfortable route. And they just never do it. And then, you kind of taking that step and now in a way with solid core it's just another version of, hey, how do we help people through teaching them to be stronger and resilient and challenge themselves and showing up every day and maybe doing something that they didn't think they could do in this new environment, like that they can do that and having that impact and building community and instilling those kind of resilience in them. I think it's pretty incredible, and it really speaks to like that entrepreneurial spirit that you said having that realization, I am an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I think if anybody takes anything away, because people all the time like, and I have this business idea. And I'm like, if you've had this idea for 2, 3 years, if I'm being honest and you haven't done anything about it, there's probably something there that you just don't want it bad enough in regard to that idea, or it doesn't mean enough to you to do anything about it. I've had tons of business ideas that I think are great, but like some of them are tech related and I just don't give a shit and I don't know how to do that. And like it's not, there's nothing driving me to do it. And I think that's what people need to remember as you reference COVID, Joe. There will be very bumpy roads and times, and you need to imagine yourself in that, in a storm that feels endless, and still like, I will not quit. I felt that way in COVID about solid core. I felt that way when I would see the recidivism with the back of my feet guys and how heartbreaking that was for me to watch them to go so far to just stumble back down and go on a binge of cocaine or drinking and like, gosh, was this all for nothing? And still wanting to move forward. And I felt that way with solid core too. Like my team will tell you that the day I had to lay off everybody in a Zoom call like this, and I was just, I mean, I get like chills. I was so fired up. I was just like, I cannot believe that this like came out of nowhere and we made this decision. And the last thing I said to them was, if there is anybody that you want on your team in a situation like this, it is me. And I will get us through this. You need to buckle your seatbelts. I can't promise you, like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to hire you back, but I promise you there will be a company to come back to. Like, full stop. You can trust me. And that's every decision I made during COVID. Like, that was the North Star. And that had to, if the decision we made did not contribute to our future after this was over, it wasn't on the table.
Yeah, it's like COVID being, well, 2 years ago at this point, which is still wild when I think about it, but we're still obviously in it to some extent with or hopefully coming out of it as it relates to fitness industry and getting back kind of moving in the right direction. There was next year, 2013, when you started, there'll be 10 years of solid core, which is pretty incredible. Maybe we'll circle back to the COVID piece and how that all transpired, but from your perspective, how is it that you were able to build a sustainable boutique studio, scale that business. Where, as you mentioned, like it is super competitive. It is very difficult. You see a lot of trends and fads come in and out. You see a bunch of different studios, even very popular, well capitalized brands that everybody kind of knows, like have gone out of business or closed a bunch of studios. So I guess the question being, what do you attribute that to? That being able to keep it going, even let's say before COVID happened, and maybe with the direction going forward.
It's never one answer for these things, and it's always a culmination. Like when people ask you about your skincare routine, like it's never like, oh, I drink a lot of water. There's a lot of things that contribute to somebody's success or the success of something. And there's a few things with Solid Core. One, when I started this company in DC, there wasn't any other boutique fitness there. And I knew that market well. It's an affluent market. I felt pretty sophisticated in the workout space. And I'm like, no one knows you can work out like this, and I've been the guinea pig, right? And the results from this are like nothing else. So I knew that this was gonna be something special, for 1. 2, the quality of the product and the delivery of the product, and then 3, as I mentioned in the beginning, being authentic about the community and people like I still take solid core 4 times a week. It's still my primary workout. So it's not a bunch of bullshit. It's like this thing really works. So those few things in the beginning, and I coached a lot. I was in the studios a lot. I still coach, but I was listening a lot, paying attention, seeing what worked, what didn't work, watching the vibe that was going on. And I opened my second studio really quickly, just seeing how popular the first one was. And I was like, okay, number two, let's get going. I really believe in the power of momentum, and you have a moment. And if I could get the second one open really quickly, it's kind of like, oh, now there are two. And in people's brains, it's like, what am I missing? Like, that must be a really great workout. And then 2 months after that, there was 3, and then you get media, and it's just like, now there's 6 solid cores in the first year, so word starts to spread and you capitalize on momentum, and I think we did that really well, while also continuing to deliver a unique, high quality product that was like nothing else in the industry. And as we started to expand around the country and open up in new places, I just think we've done it better than anybody else, and I truly believe that comes to everybody who works here, like, works out here, takes the workout, they're bought in, and we've also made really smart business decisions of when we've had to level up the team, and those are never easy, but usually the same person who's there in the first 10 studios, right? And I didn't know enough back then. I never had scaled something to this size, so I was learning as I was going too. But when you have to do a reorg or you're like, we don't this level of talent, like you're talented, but the job doesn't make sense anymore for the structure. There was a lot of that too, and not being afraid to make the business decision over the passion decision, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And that's, I was actually going to ask about that because oftentimes what you have in the fitness industry, and so I previously owned different gyms, functional training gyms and CrossFit gyms, and same idea, right? Scaling that and thinking about why did I get into it? And when I got into it, it's like I'm teaching every class, I'm training every client, I'm like in the gym all day, every day. Well, at the same time, trying to balance like, oh, we want to open a new location. We need to get capital for X. We need to fire somebody over here. And I think a lot of times what you have, especially at the early stages, and now starting to see this as well, getting into like the digital fitness, whether that's connected fitness or just apps and things like that, people are so passionate about it. They love it. They love what it's done for them, like fitness experience, learning how to work out, learning how to transform their body, the mental health benefits. And they love helping other people and obviously the impact that has. But recognizing that passion is not enough necessarily to turn it into a business. And that's the kind of gap that, like, when it comes like the things you're talking about, reorgs, hiring, restructuring, scaling studios, like you have to make the tough decision. And it's not just about like that passion that got you into coaching or personal training or being an instructor in the first place.
Yeah, and Joe, I mean, this industry is so great because of what we offer to communities and we offer spaces for folks, but it's one of the key things I see as opportunity in this industry is there's so much passion and there's not enough business sense. And it is why, I mean, listen, we work with ClassPass and I frankly really enjoy our relationship with ClassPass, but we didn't work with them until we had negotiation power. And that meant that like ClassPass should, and they will try to, and again, I love the people over there, but they'll try to convince you that paying them getting someone in your studio for $12 is better than that spot being empty. And we would always say, we fundamentally disagree, because as soon as I value this workout at $12 for somebody and other people start to know that and whatever, and I want them to pay full price for the same experience, but they don't get anything different or else, people's brains can't do it. So I would rather leave that spot empty, spend $12 to acquire my correct customer that's going to be here for a long lifetime value of that current customer, and do the work to get the right customer rather than look for the person who wants to discount. And I had to educate myself a lot. I knew a lot about certain things that were beneficial to solid core. But even when I started raising money, people would be saying acronyms like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. And I was not afraid to say that. And anybody who made me feel stupid for not knowing, I was like, I don't want to work with you. Like, I've built this business to 25 locations. I know I need to raise money. I know my economics. I know all these things, but I had never raised private equity before. So I needed someone around me who was going to work with me, not take advantage of me, not make me feel dumb, on learning about that process and what to ask for, and like going through purchase agreement and majority minority rights, like what does a preferred return mean. There was a lot of stuff, and it's the best advice I think I can give to someone who really sees, and they have one, two, three, four studios, and they see a path to private equity. And I'm like, educate yourself. Don't think that you just operating your business and knowing fitness like is going to be enough. You need to learn about all the rainbow of what it means to run a business, from ops to legal to HR to finance to all of these things. And if you don't do that, your business is never going to grow to a certain level.
Yeah, it's huge and great advice for kind of anybody at any any stage of business, fitness or otherwise. You gotta know it inside and out. Kind of jumping ahead a little bit to where you framed it up as basically having a Zoom call, having to lay people off during COVID. Just for context, at that point, what was happening pre-COVID in terms of the business? Were you in expansion mode? Were you in it was pretty sustained and you were thinking about kind of what comes next? Was it like what was happening at Solid Core and just like what was the vibe industry wide if we could like flash back there?
Oh my god, business was booming, and we had just hired bankers to sell the company. I had always said, like, I wanna get Solid Core to 100 studios and sell it. I was never shy about what the vision was from the beginning of, I'm gonna do my part, and my part is always, you want me involved in the early stages, putting everything sort of in place, infusing it with brand, community, authenticity, and whatever. And then at some point, it outgrows me, and I outgrow it, and, like, we're no longer a great match. And so it felt like we would have had 100 studios by the end of 2020. And I'm like, great, business is doing great. Let's take it to market. We had hired Piper Sandler, and we went down to what's called ICR to Florida, did this huge dog and pony show, had a ton of interest. And obviously, just like that, things changed pretty drastically. And then we just preserved our cash as much as we could during COVID, of course. And then we were in the middle of a fundraising deal, which didn't go through during COVID. Those deals fall apart sometimes, and this one did. And then in February, or actually December of 2020, we're like, we're going to try to go raise money again. And fortunately found a partner that we both agreed on the valuation and the terms, and brought on BMG, and we raised 50 million bucks in February of last year. And instead of selling it, we're just like, we're not selling this company at a discount. Like, there's no way that a moment in time makes sense to discount this company when we all believe in the future of in-person fitness. And so we were like, let's raise money and then grow it for the next couple years, and then take it to market in its entirety when it makes sense again.
That's really interesting hearing you talk about this idea. I think at that time, some people would have been like, well, if we're ever going to get out, we need to get out now because everybody says this is the end of fitness, right? And so, like, we have to, do what we can to preserve any value that we've built in it. And you were on the exact flip side of that, which was like, no chance.
Right. I remember it just being so laughable. And it's interesting when you think about past events like 9/11, right? The unfortunate incidents of 9/11. And people are like, no one's ever going to fly again. And that like lasted a few months, and then everything went right back to the way that it was. So when saw some of the decisions, being made, and how some people were just doubling down on, investing in digital, whatever. Like we partnered with Equinox because they were like, we'll handle everything. We're like, great. That's not our business. We are not a digital marketing company platform. Like we know nothing and we're not going to pretend to play in that space when we are not capitalized or resourced to be able to do so. We know what we're good at. And I am like, everybody is going to be craving to get back to in person. This is going to go away. And we were just so confident and sold that idea to VMG as well. And fortunately, they bought in and our business is performing. I mean, I don't even know the exact numbers, like, because every day it gets better, but, like, we are fully recovered, like, 120, 30% from where COVID was. People are coming back to in-person in droves. We are seeing it in our business in such a strong way. I think Pilates is having a really big moment right now, but the more studios that we open, we have 87, I think, today. The more studios we open, the more people come, so now we have this bigger army of people talking about it, and going back to what I said before, the quality of the product and the results are there. So, of course, people are like coming back after they see like this stuff really works. It's really efficient and I like the workout and I like the people and I like the vibe. You're giving me all the reasons possible to continue to show up here.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, but you already answered it in that response, which was awesome to hear how you're thinking about it. In terms of trends, back to studios, gyms starting to make a comeback, digital at home. I think I talked to Joey from Barry's and he shared a very similar sentiment, which was like, you can't replicate what we do at home. He's like, this, we have a digital component. Yes, we're going to use that as a way to connect with people, but Barry's is meant to be experienced in the red room, and solid core is meant to be experienced like in the studio with the community and the instructors. And like that is the competitive advantage. Don't try to go and compete in this world where it is, the digital marketing, acquisition, content creation, all of those things. So yeah, I think it was interesting to hear that perspective.
Well, and to give you another perspective, like retail. I got caught up in the beginning of like, "Oh, boutique fitness, you have retail." Like, we have stripped out the retail in majority of our locations because I'm like, "We aren't a retail company. None of us here have any experience in selling clothes and apparel and understanding SKUs and, like, the economics behind that." I'm like, "Why are we forcing" like, you don't see coffee shops or a lot of other places, only fitness that is, like, trying to get you to buy. I'm like, just we should put it all online. And if people want it, they can have it there. But we were losing so much money. Our studio managers hated that part of their job of doing inventory and like people would steal it, right? And making sure you're like, okay, I think people are gonna order this, but you have to pay for it up front. And if it doesn't sell, you're stuck with it. Like it was just like, this is such a headache and we're not making any money and how much time, like we're done. So I think that's important advice too of don't do things because everybody else is doing them in your industry. Like if it doesn't make sense, stop doing it and just don't have retail. Like you go into most of our studios and like there's not retail there anymore.
Yeah, it's great advice as well. Kind of building on the point of where potentially you see the industry going and changing gears. Like you're getting back in the game with another boutique concept. This time, details are a little sparse from the press release, so you can fill us in maybe on some of what's taking shape. But the way that I understand it, ambition is basically moving in this direction of like the wellness and holistic well-being component of fitness, like merging both of those things, providing an experience that maybe offers people a well-rounded or at least a more expansive approach. But you can give us the real rundown.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have asked me a year ago if I was gonna start another fitness company, I'd be like, "Absolutely not." But, when I was in New York in February and I was running around the city like everybody else going to these different things, and I'm like, "Man, like, 1, it feels so transactional, and 2, they don't know that I did this workout over here before, and, like, what we're doing today, is this even achieving my fitness goals for what's important to me?" And I felt like there was a lack of sophistication and education in the boutique industry that we could put 4 modalities in one place and have the staff that can help you if you're like, "I'm trying to run a faster marathon, I'm trying to lose weight." I'm trying to like build muscle, these sort of things. And we can help direct you on a path that's going to speak to those goals. So we have like a strength class, a conditioning class, athletic inspired yoga class. I always feel when I go do yoga that it's like kind of a workout, but kind of a stretch. So I feel like I need to go do a workout and then I really need to stretch. Like, it never spoke to me as something that satisfied my workout experience. So same thing as I did with solid core of like, it's Pilates inspired. I want people to leave our athletic inspired yoga class and like be like, holy cow, I can't go do another workout today. And then we have a recovery class, a deep stretch class that is specifically going to provide that for if you want it. But on top of that, I've recently, you may have seen this too, but I've been very vocal about my relationship with alcohol. I drank like a lot of people socially, and I always kind of joked about it in the fitness industry. And I had a big wake up call in March, and I'm like, I've always thought I would outgrow this. And I'm like, I'm 41 years old, and I'm still drinking pretty consistently. And I need to like figure out my relationship. I need to do some reading. I need to figure out how I've created this horrible habit for me. And just learning one, how bad the shit is for you, how ubiquitous it is everywhere, especially in the fitness industry. If I'm being honest, like, there's a lot of drinking and a lot of drugs that happen in this industry. And I began to feel a little bit like a fraud of how can I be participating in this activity that alcohol is working directly against all of the work that I'm doing and people are doing, that they're spending time and energy on moving, lifting weights, putting the right food in their body. But alcohol always gets a pass. Like, I need to start to speak up over this. So I was like, I'm not drinking until till the end of the year. And I started to notice there's so many more people who were like, "Me too, me too." And there isn't enough going on. Everybody that wants to go do something when they wanna do social, it's like, "Let's go out to eat or let's go out to drink." And ambition is going to be a space like, we're gonna be a heavy event space as well, and having activities for folks to come and do on a Friday night, whether it's the breath work, whether it's sitting down and having like Anne and Joe are having a conversation on the fitness industry, and you can come and connect with folks, and like, this is your Saturday night activity. So we're really gonna just be tapping into experts, people of interest in all different facets to come and speak to people and interact. And additionally, on top of that, I want ambition to be a place that we are keeping people really accountable to what they say that they want in their lives. So the events around that, the group conversations outside of the fitness industry. And some people aren't going to like what I say next, and that's okay. But I am so over like the self-care movement and telling people like, if you don't feel 100%, don't do it. You know, if all you can do today is lay on your mat, then that's what you should do. And I would tell that person, I want you to get up and I want to show you that you can do this even when you don't feel 100%. You need to show yourself that you can do difficult things. That is how resilience is built. That is how you are going to realize your putting your potential into action, into ambition. But if we're telling people every time they don't feel like doing something, don't do it. Every time you don't feel motivated, don't do it. And you think your life's going to be great, like, it's just a lie. And I'm so tired of that message. And so we're not going to let you get away with that ambition. Like, we're going to challenge you and we're going to push you in all which ways. And this is not a place for you to come if you want excuses. Like, this is not a participation trophy company. Like, you're gonna show up and we're gonna help you do that.
Yeah, I think a lot in there that's exciting and inspiring when you're talking about it. I think potentially some things that represent an evolution of fitness and studio fitness in many ways, like how people are coming together, what they're doing, why they're there, how you get them to engage, the type of community that's being built. When you look at now, there's a lot around social wellness communities, right? And some things around like just getting together in like almost a group therapy type setting or breath work and recovery and all the things on that side too. So, and for someone like me, I stopped drinking 10 years ago and I run into that also. Like, what am I going to do? Like everything that I would do anywhere that I would go, it's just, I have to sit there and answer the question of like, oh, why don't you drink? Why did you this? Why don't like, oh, you sure you don't want something to drink? All down that path. So putting that in and just being inclusive and mindful of that, I think opens up a lot of doors in terms of why people choose to be there and the types of people that they surround themselves with.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. It's been really it's really filled me up when I don't know somebody or someone will say like, "Me and my husband haven't had a drink in 3 months." You really like, it's because I'm like, "Oh my god, we have all been tricked and duped for so long." And the alcohol industry has been so good at telling us that alcohol belongs in our life when we're sad, when we're stressed, when we're happy, when we're celebrating, when we're deserving, when we're retired, when we're mothers, when we're dating. Like they have got you in every single phase. And that's when I was like, I'm doing this all the time, like by myself on a Tuesday night. Like if I want a cocktail for the end of my day because it's winding down. And it was just I had to get really honest. And I'm like, this is gonna be my life if I don't get it in check, start reading, understanding how I got here. And then I just started talking about it. And I hope no one listening feels like I'm not trying to shame anybody into it. But when you really ask yourself, like, why do you drink? Most people are like, I don't know. I just do. Or like, I don't know. It's the first thing that I've noticed that people say is, I don't know. And when you ask me if like why I work out, I don't say, I don't know. I say because it makes me feel amazing. And it's like a dopamine rush and it sets me up for my day. And I like feeling strong. Like I have all of the answers for that. So I want to inspire and encourage people to take a look. And I actually have a whole program called 90 Days Alcohol Free where we have a group of people that come together every week and get resources and talk about their relationship with alcohol.
Amazing. Another bringing people together and having that impact and kind of helping them get themselves going in a new direction. It's pretty incredible to see like another avenue. Do you think that will be part of the kind of studio programming, or will it be something that you just continue to do kind of separate from that?
I feel like we're open to it and we'll see. I feel like ambition, like we'll do these different challenges, both fitness related and just outside. And I have a feeling we'll tap into like, all right, guys, do you want to sign up for the 90-day alcohol free challenge this month and getting people access to it more than likely with their memberships? They don't have to pay an extra fee to like be a part of this community. But anything that we are think that is going to make our members' lives healthier and happier, we're going to offer that to them and get them exposed to it and encourage them to participate in it. And, everybody's got to get there on their own with alcohol. And, I learned through my dad that you can't force anybody to change if they don't wanna change, and if you're happy with your relationship with alcohol, then great. Like, I'm not here to force somebody to do anything different. The same as I say about when someone I'm like, "If you watch 4 hours of TV a day and you're super happy, then, like, great, then keep doing that if that's what you wanna do." Like, everybody's life doesn't always have to be the same, but I always say, if you're curious, if like you're unsatisfied and you haven't touched the alcohol bucket yet, you've sort of always just given it a pass, why not explore it? Why not see what happens when you just put it down for 90 days? Because for me, it had this domino effect. Like I never really watch TV anymore because I always would, at the end of the night, grab a cocktail, turn on the TV and like numb myself for an hour. But now that the alcohol isn't the agent, like I don't have any desire to watch TV. Like I very, very rarely am doing that as a passive activity anymore.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, Wrapping up as we get towards the end of the conversation here, just on the ambition front, it said, kind of look out studio or studios coming to New York City. What should people look out for?
Yeah, so we have three leases signed, 3 studios. We'll probably have 4 open by the end of next year, but the first one will open in Brooklyn, actually, Brooklyn Heights at the end of February, early March at 57 Court Street. And then our second one is 225th Avenue, so that's right across catty corner from Madison Square Garden on 26th Street and 5th Avenue. And then the third one is actually decently close. It's on 20th Street. I really wanna it's the old burn space. I know those guys well, and so that'll just have that particular location will just have the which is heated, the athletic inspired yoga in that particular category. But I think that's gonna be our most popular class. And I'm like, I'm betting on like that being kind of the overfloor studio to the 225th studio. So those will be the 3. And then we're looking like a NoHo area for number 4 for next year.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely be following along as it gets up and running. Yeah, we'll actually get you out of here on this, whether it's you, social media, ambition, solidcore, where would you point people in terms of like continue the conversation or keep up with everything you have going on?
Yeah, probably Instagram is probably the platform that I'm most active on. I feel like, that movie, He's Just Not That Into You, and Drew Barrymore is like, oh my God, there's so many ways for people to break up with you now. They text you, they leave you a voice message, they go to your MySpace. I feel the same way and I just can't like commit. So I'm like, just go to Instagram and it's where I will respond to most messages. And then on my bio is like all the links to ambition, solid core, the 90-day alcohol stuff. So it's probably the best place to direct folks.
Yeah, we'll get that both all that stuff in the show notes. And it was an awesome conversation. Super grateful that you made some time to join us today. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Appreciate you also.
One more thing before you head out. Help us spread the word. Take a minute to rate and review the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, or share this episode with a friend. And if you like conversations like this, you'll love the Fit Insider newsletter. We send it every Tuesday. The link is in the description. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you back here next week.